That is what you should be looking for. A man who could stand up and do what he has to do.
That is why I was trying to
Don't
get
just
to.
look at dollars and cents.
Where is the line of too young? And is it at 18?
And if they leave these children unattended, the future does not look bright at all.
Guys, what do you think church people are afraid of when it comes to speaking openly about sex?
This is before marriage.
Before, yes?
Wait.
Listen. I just asked. Calm down.
Hold on. This is before marriage. While Welcome to another edition of the Talk Heavy podcast. We are here once again in the wonderful studios, Mended Studios, Trinidad and Tobago. All right, special good evening to each and every one of you viewing wherever you are. I am your host, Justice, ready to keep the vibe light, but the talk heavy. And this is definitely going to be a heavy conversation that we're going to have today, all right? Just want to say good evening to all our viewers on Facebook. We are live on the Mended Studios Facebook page, all right, main platform. And of course, you can check us out afterwards on YouTube. Just search Talk Heavy Podcast, all right? And just jump on there. Remember to subscribe. Most importantly, like, share, comment. We still would want to hear your views and your perspective, right, on this topic this evening. Topic for this evening, we are asking: are you his servant or his wife? Right. This, of course, stemming from a video that went pretty viral within the last week or the last few days, that is, of a young lady sharing her views, sharing her the structure of her dynamic with her mate, all right? And it caused a lot of controversy, I must say, Jules. Some people I think mostly men was like, oh God, boy, I want a wife like this, I want a woman like this. And we had some women, in the comment sections and on certain platforms like, this can't work. This looking like, you know what? We had the clip, right? Yeah. Let me don't waste no more time, right? Let me jump into the clip.
What does a submissive woman do for her man?
Everything.
What does that mean?
Like packing his bag, unpacking his bag, just making sure all the things that he wants. And like I pretty much read his mind. So it's like, if I know you and I study you, like I know how you are in the morning, I know how you are about midday, I know when you're in this mood, what you need. Like before you can ever ask me for something, I'm already on it. I mean, he's spoiled. And when I talk to my girlfriends about it, they're always like, oh, how you guys doing? And I'm just like, girl, he's rotten. I'm like, he's spoiled rotten. Like, he's rotten. But I love that. Like, I want him to be that. I think my biggest flex is how I treat my man. And I've been known to love people back to health. And sometimes it's very draining. But my love is my superpower. And I used to hate that about myself. But now it's like, I'm just embracing it. Like, that's who I am. Like, if I love you, I can heal you.
It's your joy.
It is my joy. I love to see him eating the meal that I cooked. I love seeing him sleep easy. Every night, like clockwork, I scratch this man's back to sleep. And I know when he's asleep because I can tell when his breathing changes. And some people might think that's psychotic, but that's like, I just know that's when I'm like, oh, I can stop now. But I find joy in being your rest, So know what that means. And that works for us because he wants what I have to offer.
What are you getting from all that you're giving? What are you asking for in return?
I find that song good to me, and I don't know. But we want to have a balanced, equal conversation, and here, for another week, we're happy to have her, Miss Omega Francis. What's up, Omega? How you going?
I'm good. I'm glad to be back.
Nice. Well, they done laughing and thing already.
Yeah.
I know Omega have a lot to say. Omega, looking at this video, what are your thoughts? What's going on?
first thought, I when I saw that was cringe, like
Wow.
extreme cringe.
Really? Why?
But it because it's giving mother, and I don't know about anybody else. I am not getting into a relationship with a man to mother him. He's supposed to be a partner. It's supposed to be an equal thing. So for me, if I'm doing all of this stuff, what are the benefits? Because that last question there is an interesting question, and it was interesting that they cut it off at that part. They didn't let her answer. Well, they didn't include the answer to that.
Right.
So I would love to know what her benefits for doing all of that would be.
Okay,
It
well,
seems like he's getting everything out of it. He's having a nice time.
no, I find that was the kind of funny part for me, right? How come it is a lot of these women just assume that she not getting anything in return? Like, what's that about? We don't know.
Because here's the thing. That's usually the way the cookie crumbles. It's usually the way the cookie crumbles. Not always, Not always. I didn't say always.
Usually. But I mean...
It's usually the way the cookie crumbles, because you often see the dynamic where the woman is putting out 100 and the man is putting out 20% of himself. And because the 20% is within the realm of what he sees being a man is, aka having a job and bringing money into the house, it ends at that. So, and he sees her role as taking care of the house, kids, whatever, and taking care of him as well. It's an unequal kind of thing, and it doesn't really often work out. She herself said sometimes it's draining, and for a lot of women out there, all the time it's draining. You know.
Well, if we look at a relationship in general, it is a lot of work, especially a marriage, and I mean one would kind of expect that it might be draining, on certain occasions, you know. I mean, if it draining 100% of the time, then maybe all they need to, they have a little problem, or they might have a conversation, a bit more compromise. But you mentioned something very interesting. You say it's usually that's how the cookie crumbles. That's how it happens usually. But do you think it's by? It doesn't have to be usually. It could be usually based on a person's experience, or their past experience with relationships and dealing with the opposite sex and that type of thing. So it could be relative, perhaps.
It could be relative. You're right. Right. I mean, I have no personal experience with me being the submissive person and it not working out. I've never been, at least in the way how she described doing all of that.
Okay.
I've never been that person for somebody else.
So
I usually am in pretty even relationships.
All right. But I mean, we don't know what the reality of her dynamic is. We don't know if her man does reciprocate, you know?
Well, that's why I say it was interesting that where the clip cut off.
Yeah.
And I think it's by design, because it's intended to all this the venom possibly on the part of most women. It's intended to have that kind of visceral response, because I think as I said, I've heard from most women, it's like, I do all this for him, and I do this, and I do that, and I give all myself, and then he still cheats.
I think,
and he still, so
I wouldn't doubt that there are a lot of women who had bad experiences with relationships and with men. They probably gave their all for indeed, and didn't get the outcome they would have expected. But I also do think that there are the men who are on the good side of the line, the good men, that is, who would stand up to their role, be a good husband, be a good mate are in the majority. I think the majority of men in anywhere are good men. Perhaps it's probably the fact that the majority of women, they compete for the same small percentage of these men who might not be healthy for them. If you understand what I'm saying.
I understand what you mean. I understand what you mean. And I think that is a big part in the whole submission thing issue.
Right.
That the majority, the loudest speakers, the loudest men who like, I want submission, I want a submissive woman, I'm submissive wife, are not men who are worthy to even submit to. They tend to be the ones who I want this, da 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 da. And when you really examine the situation, it's like, but what are you bringing there? What are you doing? You know, it's like, you you yourself are faulty, but you want this complete person to then give of herself 100%. But then you're just taking and you're not giving anything. So what's the point?
So I guess you're saying that a real man, an assertive man, doesn't have to scream to the world that, hey, I have to have a submissive woman. A woman has to be submissive to me. She has to do X, Y, Z. It should be something that is understood when she enters the dynamic.
No, it should be, if it is that it's something comfortable to her to do, part of her, because it is part of some people, like naturally part of some people's being. You know, I want to give of myself to a certain level. If it is naturally something that's part of her, then when you get into a dynamic with somebody else who is completing that scenario, who is not faulty or any of these things, or using the same term, worthy to that, then it's an automatic thing. You don't feel forced to do it. You don't feel demanded to do it, you know, just because there are a lot of men out there who think that they deserve submission purely on the virtue of being a man. Nothing else. Just existing in the world as being a man, they deserve submission. And that, I think, is a faulty thought process, and they should go back to thinking about, you know, think about that a little bit more. Work on themselves.
But where do you think that thought process originates from?
Well, religion, first of all, you know, and the patriarchy, because it's given men the idea that they are deserving of certain things, and it's a level of what's the word? They feel entitled because society has told them that they are entitled to this, and there has not been much pushback until maybe now. And then this is where you see a lot of them talking about, well, the modern woman is have a problem and she don't want to do this, and our mothers and grandmothers didn't have a problem, when truth and in fact, mothers and grandmothers very much had a problem. They just didn't have many options to have problems. If you understand what I mean.
They didn't have many options in terms of what?
In terms of if they had a problem with their dynamic, whether it's marriage or relationship, they didn't have options to get out of it, because they got into these relationships and marriages to be able to navigate life. So a woman's means through life to gain any kind of standing was to be married off. To gain any kind of money, to gain any kind of power, and a little bit that she had to have a husband of certain standing, or just a husband who can afford to buy her stuff, and she can afford to exist, you know, and live. So a lot of times, the women throughout history who didn't go up in society or live for very long had a hard time were those that didn't get married and didn't have that person, the man who was taking care of them. Now that we don't have that dynamic necessarily, we have a little bit more options to get out of these situations, you know. I wanna
come back to that because I would have a few questions based on that. But on the Zoom we also have my brothers Anthony McLeod and Nathan Springer. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, sir.
Right,
I'm currently in transit.
Awesome, nice to have you.
Yep.
So you would have seen the video, all right?
Mm-hmm.
You would have heard the discussion so far, all right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this whole submission situation and the video itself as well?
Well, I think first off, that video, I am not sure if that video is directly submission. I think that video is kind of intimacy. Like doing something for your partner isn't necessarily being submissive.
But don't you think that acts of, well, I don't want to jump into the whole love languages discussion because that's a different topic in itself, right? Don't you think that serving in a relationship is a big part of the submission aspect?
Well, not necessarily, because submission isn't necessary. Are you getting me there yet? Because submission isn't necessarily about serving the person. To submit doesn't necessarily mean to serve. Submission has to do with who you recognize as leader. And to recognize someone as leader isn't necessarily to be a servant to them. It's to be a follower necessarily to them, but not necessarily a servant. So yes, serving could be a part of.
All right, I think we having a bit of bandwidth on the move is kind of low. So we will bring in Anthony in the meantime. Anthony, you there?
Yeah, good night.
Show your affection. You hear me?
We had some connection difficulties there with you, Nathan. We'll come back to you, right?
All right.
I know you're on your way, nevertheless. Anthony, talk to me.
Yeah, man.
I know you would have shared some similar views as to Nathan with the serving and submission thing.
Yeah, the similar views is that I don't think it's necessarily submission. You understand? And I think that is the genesis of the issue, where people don't understand. You all hear me? Am I soft? And am I being loud?
Yeah, you're kind of soft.
Okay, people generally they don't understand what submission is. So what they are expecting is not necessarily submission. So from her perspective, I don't think that she is truly talking about submission. She may be talking about how she serves, how she pampers her husband, but it's not necessarily submission. And unfortunately, you have people going into marriage either, on the positive side of doing it, you have men expecting women to serve like that and calling it submission. You have women going into marriage expecting to serve like that and checking off the box of, her submitting, I just cook food for him every day. And then on the flip side, you have women resisting submission because they think that that's what it is, being a maid. And then you have problems. So I think the necessary thing is to define submission that isn't wrapped around a list of things that you do, but submission as a posture, as a quality, and then I think you'll really see what submission is.
All right. Well, I want to pull up the definition of submission here. All right, the action or fact of accepting or yielding to a superior force or the will or authority of another person. So accepting or yielding to a superior force, right? that is the definition of submission based on a Google search. All right.
Right, and I think that is exactly what a lot of ladies have issues with. They have issues with submission in terms of, being under someone to that extent, where this person is the lead. I'm the follower. And just to touch on something that Omega. Oh, you say your name Omega?
Omega.
Omega.
Yeah.
Omega.
Omega. Okay.
Omega.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, it's not an even partnership. It's a partnership. It's not an even partnership. It's not an equal partnership.
Whoa.
It's not an even partnership. We
Ec-
are equal,
Mm.
but it's not necessary that certain things be reciprocated. You have the side of leader, follower. Then you also have the side of, people have different temperaments. People are wired differently. So some people may tend to serve more. Some people may tend to do other things to show their affection. But it doesn't necessarily mean that all these things need to be reciprocated. And women usually are more nurturing, so it tends to flow out of that. But I would make it a rule that A, you have to do X, you have to do Y, you have to do Z. That flows with the thinking that submission is about being a real good housewife, a real good pamperer. Although these things are nice, getting a nice hot plate of food in your hand from your wife is a heaven sent thing. I love it. It's nice, but let's not get it mixed up with what submission is. That's just my 2 cents on the matter so far. I don't wanna go down a long road, but I have some other thoughts in mind.
Omega mentioned.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Omega.
Yeah, I think Anthony made some great points there, and it's initially what he was talking about is something that I like I'm bristle at the idea of submission, because every single example of it is exactly what this lady is portraying. This kind of, I have to just do, and just complete service, and sometimes it kind of comes across as a level of, for want of a better word, slavery. Like you just do, you just have to be serving this person 24/7, and there has been no actual positive description of submission that I've ever seen that shows that it's something that is beneficial to the woman as much as it seems to be beneficial to the man. And then I've realized that there are things that you, as Anthony pointed out as well, some people are better at certain things than others. Some people, you might be a better cook than your wife, but just because she's your wife, does that mean that she has to be the cook in the idea of the way how they portray submission? Because she's a woman, she cooks, she cleans, she takes care of it. But it may be just that him, being the better cook services that need, and why isn't that a healthy thing?
To jump in there as well, and this is exactly what I'm saying. So when it's not defined, you find that you have a weird understanding of a weird application of submission. So, and I'll use myself as an example. I could hold my weight in a little cooking, you understand? And especially when my wife was pregnant, I was cooking plenty. I am serving and tying it into to biblical things, because this is what we base it on. We are taught to be servant leaders, right? So if your definition of submission is so tied into serving, then am I submitting when I serve? No. That's incorrect. So I serve my wife. I do a lot of things to my wife, and that is how I like to please her. You understand? She does things as well that falls under the umbrella of service. So when we're looking at the Bible telling us how to mirror Christ and the church in our marriage, we see that submission is really about the wills. It's really about, am I going to try to do my own thing? Am I going to pursue my own agenda or identity. Yeah, and that whole identity thing could be tied into, women not wanted to change their last names, but we'll get to that on another time. But, so am I willing to put myself under submission, put myself under this person, and trust that this person is going to lead? You understand? So the thing that you're supposed to be expecting back is good leadership, right? You're not expecting that, okay, I just do this and he's supposed to do that. No, you're expecting good leadership out of the whole scenario. And this is why I just tell people, when it comes to marriage...
Could I disagree a bit with you there,
Okay,
Anthony?
Sure.
Because I was listening in as I was coming. Sorry for being late.
That's all right.
And I understand what she's talking about. The mistake some people have with correlating submission with servitude. Submission and servitude is not the same thing. But I think in that whole tone of submission, we could go back to where this idea came from. This, if we're being honest, if we're being plain, this is a biblical concept. This comes from the Bible. So when you're saying they aren't to expect anything back other than good leadership, I disagree. First off, the Bible says, women, submit yourself to your own husband. So that's not a girl submit to boy. That's not a woman submit to men. That's not talking about gender relations. That's talking about marriage. First up. Secondly, the Bible in that same passage spoke about husbands loving their wives as Christ loved the church. So it is meant as a closed system, as it were. So the wives submit themselves to their own husbands. So they're listening as following a leader, but you don't even have to worry about this leader, because this leader is one who is willing to sacrifice their life for you as Christ sacrificed his life for the church. So I think you don't need to submit to anyone, of course. That's optional on you. But if you're looking for that marriage where you're expecting your husband to love you as Christ loved the church and willingly gave up his life for the church, then that kind of marriage has in it submission as the man being the leader. And I don't find that's a weird thing, because every single organization, every single institution has to have a leader. Now,
Right.
we could talk about co-leaders, etc., 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 but even in institutions where there are co-leaders, both leaders don't lead the same areas. It's just impossible. That's not how things function. So it makes sense that someone is the leader in this situation. And leader isn't necessarily the domineering person. Leader isn't the person that has to beat up on the other one. In fact, if we go back again to the biblical basis of this, Christ showed us what leader is. The leader shall be the least among you. They're the one behind pushing everyone to make sure they reach up to where they have to reach. They're the one washing the other people's feet. So as a wife, you're expecting your husband to be the kind to wash your feet, to sacrifice everything for you. And if you have that kind of person who is willing to do that level of sacrifice for you, then to submit for them being the leader becomes much less of an issue, I think.
And I like where you went with it there, in terms of being the leader, because the Bible says, aside from the submission, husbands love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it, that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, right? That he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle. So just as Christ loved the church and presented without spot, the husband has a responsibility to mirror the same thing.
Real people.
And I totally agree with what Nathan said, because if it was that the men who were insistent on submission actually acted in that capacity, I don't think there would have been such an uproar against women submitting or existing in that space or willingness to submit, because then there would, as I said before, a lot of the men who insist on submission are not leaders, are not worthy to be submitted to. So what are you doing?
I hear that. I hear that a lot, and as I was saying before, I like to kind of have a bit of a pushback with that because in my opinion, right, and it could be different to other people based on their experiences. I strongly believe that the men who are worth submitting to are in the vast majority. That's what I think. That's what I believe.
I wouldn't be so bold.
No,
You understand?
we be real.
But, yeah, I'm not supposed to put a figure on it, but I think that concern for women comes from we have to acknowledge both sides, right? The concern comes from the frequency of men in the home who expect that kind of treatment, but then when you line them up and you say, okay, let me see what a good leader is, they tend to fall short in certain areas. So now there's a fear of getting into an arrangement. I go to say an entanglement. The fear of getting in an arrangement with a man who may abuse that submission that's been given to him.
Exactly.
Because we have the ultimate example. Submitting to Christ should or shouldn't be a hard thing, because we know that he will love we up, he will treat us good. You understand? But when it comes to men, we have an issue, and this is why I always say marriage is something you have to make sure you really fine print. You understand? Make sure you're ready to submit. There is no well, I don't think he's deserving of my submission when you're already married. You understand? This is part of the fine print.
Vetting.
You understand? So you better make sure that when you enter into the testing, you think that he's worthy of submission. If you're not worthy of submission, don't marry the man.
But
right?
Anthony, what we see, what I think happens a lot of the times, right? They would meet up with a man who is worthy of submitting to, but their past experiences, their past choices in men were tainted, right? So they weren't so good in terms of choosing the right man for whatever reason. So now you're bringing this past trauma into a relationship or a marriage with a man who is very well worthy of being submitted to, but you're still dealing with your past experiences with other men. You understand?
A lot of the time, these men are bait and switcher. A lot of them are bait and switch. I think it's not often. Well, she didn't pick right. She picked a good man, or at least the man who was portraying herself as having taken all the boxes. And then when his feet are at the fire, is like, that's it.
My view on that, I think, and this could go into a whole other topic, but on the general thing, I find part of picking is seeing who is the bait and switch. And part of that has to do with going to their home, seeing their behavior home, talking to people who know them from a long time, who know them before they hit you the beat, before they switch, etc. Well, lengthy. I think you could find out a lot in a short period of time if you're looking for the right things. I think sometimes in courtship, some people look for the wrong things. But even back to the submission part of it, I think when we look at the specialties in both of those, what the Bible recommends for both sides, the wife, submit to your own husband. And I think that's particularly difficult for women, because women are generally, and this is statistically true, women are generally more neurotic. They worry more about the everyday things. So to submit to somebody like a man who is supposed to lead you, and you're supposed to, as it were, cast your worries on him in a sense, you're not supposed to worry in that. He's leading on that side. That's very difficult for some women. You're wondering if this man is worthy of the trust of this submission here. I am submitting here. If this man isn't a good leader, I dead. And on the other side, what the Bible recommends for the men, to love your wife. Real men you hear talk afraid of that, because what they're afraid of is the vulnerability you get when you love somebody that much. If you love somebody enough to sacrifice everything you could for them, and then they horn you.
Yeah.
You understand? And real men are afraid of that. And I think in these discussions, it needs some parity. You need to, have both sides lining up with each other. As she rightfully said, if you're looking for the submission, then you're supposed to be looking to create in yourself a leader and being willing to love with that kind of unconditional love where you're loving knowing that this person has the ability to ruin my entire life, embarrass me, kill my ego, kill my pride. They could do it at the snap of a finger. And the only way I could successfully do this relationship is to really allow them that power. And on both sides, the wife has to allow the husband the power of submission, the power of submitting to him, the power of that leadership side, and the husband has to allow the wife the power of loving her to that unconditional side where she is able to do you a lot. And as we're talking about the history of both sides, many men, by the time you were married as a man, you may have loved some woman trying to play Jesus out here and loving the church, and that wasn't your church homeboy, and that church hurt you. And you feel that hurt, and you so anytime you go into love, you're trying to love conditionally. Now you gain the bad man love. I don't really love loving this kind of thing. And you're trying to hedge your love there. But if you're hedging your love, then the woman should be hedging her submission. She shouldn't be submitting fully to you. And unless both sides are willing to do that fully, and doing that fully requires maximum trust. That's why so many times people go back to relationships and marriages depend on trust. Because that particular thing, men are worried about the gold diggers grabbing them for what they're worth. That's because you spend your love and she uses you for your love. Women are worried about the abusers who use their physical power over them. That's the man who is supposed to lead you, who is supposed to in a way be dominant, because he is physically dominant to the woman, but he's supposed to use that in a lovable way. They're worried about that being abused. So it's an evaluation on both sides.
But I think if you're getting into this type of dynamics in life, is a risk.
It is.
You can't do anything without taking the risk.
True.
So is that I let your guard down and go all in 100 head first, or just don't do it at all? Rock back and get over your trauma.
This is what I always tell people: know what you want and go for what you want. You have to look at the ingredients that you're putting into your recipe and know what you're going to get at the end. So you don't have to go through the submission and love relationship style. You could go through any relationship style you want. Do it how you want. You're free to do that. But understand the consequences of that, what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I think some of the consequences of our modern style of relationships, where people rush into relationships so quickly, and then in basic relationships, they attempt to treat that like husband and wife relationships, because sister, if that is your boyfriend, you're not supposed to submit to him.
Why not? Wait, hold on.
The Bible says,
hold on.
Wait. We basing this, the whole reason we come up with this is from the Bible, you know.
But Nathan, how it is I go and know that she capable of submitting to me if I not seeing it during the dating stage or the courting stage? So she could sell me cat and bag then?
No. Someone's ability to submit could be seen without them submitting to you. So
how?
I could go into a business place and watch this business place function, and I could see who is the good worker inside of here. I could see who is the best worker. I could go to this young lady's home and I see her interaction with her father and her brother. I mean, these were recommendations that people used to give hundreds of years ago, and go and see how a woman interacts with her brother, how a man interacts with her sister. You see those things, and you see, all right, you see this girl seems like she is disrespectful, and nobody can be the boss of me, and ding. And okay, if you like that face attitude, homeboy, you go and you're going to get the consequences of that. But you know what you're going for in that lane.
But just as Omega would have highlighted earlier, the bait and switch. Not only men does bait and switch, you know.
Very true.
It's a woman that's bait and switch
and
too.
I think, as you see, I'm glad you bring that up. You see the original video we're talking about here. I don't know the lady. I'm not saying that specific lady. But fellas, that is bait and switch. A woman pretending like servitude is submission could hit you the bait and switch real good, because she coming by your work with cooked food every day and bringing for you. So you feeling the servitude style is, wow, this woman real submitting to me. But you don't know that this lady has no interest in submitting to you. And when she gets into a relationship with you where you're in a unit in a home as a marriage, she will not submit to you. That's not in her nature. Maybe that might be so. And you were mistaken with the rub back and the massage shoulder, and you don't know the lady just likes physical interaction. That's her intimacy.
Okay, so
That could be the
Exactly.
bait and
I
switch
saw
right
I
there.
saw an actual interesting response to that same video yesterday, and somebody was saying that that wasn't submission, that it was her kink. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he went on this entire thing talking about how there are certain people that's part of what gives them that kind of gratification, and it has nothing to do with wanting to serve somebody or whatever, as because they are a leader. It is just something that actually just physically gives them gratification, and that brought a different dynamic to understanding what, at least in that video, what it may mean for her, what it could mean for people who are like her, who bring forth the service is submission ideal. It brought a whole dynamic to that that's really interesting.
I agree. Because when I was listening to that video, if I recall the video correctly, when she was speaking about it, she was speaking about it as saying this brings her pleasure. She was saying that she enjoys doing this. That's not really about submission. That's you enjoy providing that for your wife. That's like if I say I like to carry my wife in an expensive store and tell her buy whatever you want, baby. I could like doing that. That's my kind of affection I like to show to her. But that's not necessarily me loving her as Christ loved the church. It's not the same thing. Even though it could appear so in a certain realm. So I could understand what you were saying there about that being her thing per se. And I think in some realms, the servitude for some people actually easier than submission. Servitude could be easier than submission. Because I don't have to
think about that,
Exactly. And I don't have to hurt my pride.
No.
I don't have to hurt my pride. I could be very proud and cooking food for you.
I don't even have, honestly, and I don't even have to love you to serve you like that.
No, none at all.
Not one bit.
And this is why I mentioned before, what happens, because we do this thing with submission, we do this thing with modesty, we do this thing with plenty of things that we're trying to uphold. We make a list of things to do in order to say, well, I'm doing it, and not realizing that these are qualities. And I love how Nathan put it across. Before you're married, you're looking for particular qualities in people. And as men and as women, because we have people that we need to submit to, there are particular qualities that you're trying to develop within yourself, and then you'll be able to function in the particular role that you're looking for. So unfortunately, just as the example, you have people who are trying to be out there and bad, and then when they get a husband, they yes, character. Seeing Giant just say character. The character is lacking, and this one thing I think we're missing a lot is the whole character aspect of it.
So we reach a particular stage in the conversation so far. Let me bring it down to let me redefine what submission supposed to be, what it is, and what it's supposed to look like.
Submission, to me, is the signal of leadership. Submission is how you know who is the leader in the interaction. The person who is the leader is the person who is submitted to. Wives, submit to your husband is saying, treat your husband as the leader of this relationship. I think it's that simple. And the reason I like to put it that way is because I think understanding how to treat a leader is something that paints a clearer picture in our mind than the word string of definition of submission. Because sometimes you hear about subscribing to someone else's will and etc. And you're like, the leader, that's it. It's a leader relationship. This is the leader in the relationship. And that's about as simple as it gets. And I almost always like to point into that, the cycle of it, that it's not just submission, it's submission and love, so that there isn't abuse of the submission and there isn't abuse of the love.
All right.
I can I chip in?
Yeah.
As well. So I actually like how that is put across. Very well. I also think, and this is more, I guess, directed to the ladies as well. Not that we're trying to pick you all out, but I think that there are I could say three main characteristics that I think would be very beneficial to focus on. There's one, there is I forget. Yeah, so there's respect, there is trust. I don't know if they are necessarily characteristics. Yeah, three things: respect, trust, and humility. Humility is a big one because at the end of the day, you'll have moments where, hey, I want to go left. Husband say, let me go right. We're not going to agree on everything. So you have to be in a place where you are willing to submit your will, submit your desire, submit your want to go into the direction that your husband wants to go. This is not saying that you're not going to give your input. This is not saying that you're not going to be able to change his mind on particular things. But if you're not prepared to do that, then you're going to have some problems. And trust, when it comes to daddy issues, a lot of ladies have daddy issues. A lot of men have daddy issues as well. Daddy issues as well as past relationships are tainting the way women are seeing relationships. And I'll give you a quick example. Even for me, there are multiple times when I was dating my wife now, I had to be like, yo, don't punish me for the things that your past lovers would have done to you. That is not me. You understand?
Yeah,
Don't punish
yeah.
me for that.
And
Because
that was my
no,
point
it's
earlier
true.
too.
It's true.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to be willing to trust this individual so much that you're willing to go under a contract that says, hey, I'm going to submit to you. If you can't do that, then jump out one time.
But
You
hear this,
understand?
I find as men, we have to be understanding too. You understanding what you're saying here, right? Because let me just say, as you put it, our past lovers, some of them were some rogues. They weren't some good fellows out here. And you telling her, I am the good one. But the thing is, it is our fellas saying I am the good one.
Yeah.
Mm.
And they do the same thing again.
I don't
and,
ever.
and wait. If that happened to a lady 3 times, and you come as number 4, homeboy,
Right.
and you saying, girl, no, you can't punish me for them other 3, but all the other 3 fellas say the
Yes.
same
Right.
thing.
Would you believe?
Same thing.
Would you
it's
believe?
balanced. It's
Same
balanced.
playbook.
Right, it's balanced. I treat she good. Actually, call she right now. I treat she good. You understand? But so I understand that it's a process, and to be very clear, it's still an ongoing process. You understand? Dealing with baggage and trauma from the past in general as humans is not a quick thing. Like, hey, you need to figure that. You understand? So it is a process.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
being patient with that. And one thing I know that I could do to help is just be a good husband. I'm not the perfectest husband, you understand? But at the same time, I will try to do what I can do to in a sense, prove that, hey, I is not the same person. But at the same
But
time,
Nate,
Yeah.
if it is, I would advise women, right? If it is you're courting a man or you're dating a man and he constantly is telling you, girl, I don't like the rest of them, you know. Eyes not this, eyes not that. Then
red flag.
that's a red
Red
flag.
flag.
That is a red flag. Because
Flag on the play.
a boy flag on the plate. A man should not be putting it out there that I good right through.
Exactly.
Constantly saying I not like your ex, you know, he was always man. That not making sense to me.
And that's what I was saying, Jazzy, how, the loudest ones who talk about, I need a submissive wife, they are usually the ones who really not leadership material, they're not worthy of being submitted. None of these different things, but they believe that because they're called man, that's just the qualifications, that's it. So they just exist as a man, and therefore that makes them deserving of submission.
I agree.
So then
I wanted to ask something to Anthony with the example that what you spoke about, where saying if you're not willing to give that level of trust, where you want to go one place and your husband want to go another place, you have to be willing to go to his side. But what about the ego in that? And I'm talking about the man's ego in a scenario where, from a very subjective point of view, or objective actually point of view, he's in the wrong. He's leading her in a wrong direction, but because his ego is how it is, and because the dynamic of the relationship says that she needs to submit, that she needs to just be, go along with that, where does that leave that type of relationship? Because he's possibly leading them into some kind of pain and heartache and ruin and whatever else.
I'd like to take
because of his ego.
I'd like to take a crack at that. And I think the answer to that is, as I was saying before, the love, the both sides, the submit and the love as Christ loved the church. So yes, as we are saying, her responsibility is to submit all right, where we going? All right, we go in Maracas. But Maracas have landslides. I say we go in Maracas, honey. Okay, fine. But if he loves her as Christ loves the church and is willing to sacrifice himself for her, she could stand reassured that if we're going to fall off the cliff, I know he's going to attempt to throw me out the car and he will go off the cliff first. Right. So you have that reassurance that this man, wherever he is going to carry me, he believes that both of us are going to live. So you actually have that, at least in his motive, you have that reassurance in his motive that his motives are that both of us succeed. Now, he could be wrong in his planning. And here's the thing. I would think that many women who have interaction with men over a lengthy period of time would know this. If a man has a plan to go in a direction, the best way to change his mind is not to tell him he's wrong and he shouldn't go in that direction in the first place. So I think I don't think the Bible was just written as a random thing to make it hard for people. I think it was written looking at humanity, looking at the specific unique nature of humanity and of women and of men and of the interaction between them. And the biblical advice, the biblical commands that were given with the intention of allowing those differences to work good together. So in that same example she's drawing there, I would say the solution to that is you're trying, yes, you want to submit to your man, but yes, to your husband, but yes, you also want your husband to love you. And that's the interaction you're looking for.
I think I agree with that, because even though the submission part is letting go of the woman letting go of her desire to kind of supersede his decisions or his choices, if you understand what I'm saying. So the very fact that you choose this man for a particular reason. You get married to him, right? You went through the whole process. You start a life with him. Somewhere along the line, you would have established that, hey, you trust him 100%. So why not trust him in this instance? Even when you feel like we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't go there, and it's just the reverse. You understand? Yeah. You love this woman, you trust her, you enter the relationship with her, you enter a marriage, you start a life with her. You understand? But
can I jump in on the flip side of that? Because the reality is that you have some scenarios where either you met the man in a bad state, or he eventually transitioned into being a poor leader, right? So I think it's worth mentioning. So I think in that case where he's telling you to do something that's not correct, once again, I wouldn't add too many conditions, because then what happens is that if you disagree on something that may not be as critical, then you have that practice of giving resistance, right? And at the end of the day, unless he's trying to tell you to do something that's against the law or some kind of sin or something, I wouldn't really push back on it too much. And you have to remember that the submission is part of all that we do that's unto God. It's not only for him, right? So there's even the account of the woman in the Bible where it's not the woman, but they talked about, if your husband is unsaved, your acts as a wife would kind of determine, you know, how warm or how soft he is concerning the gospel. So there's a place for you still being the bigger person, for you still doing what you think is honoring unto God in that scenario, for the sake of your relationship with God. Because if everything is based on how I feel about this man, then we're gonna have problems. Because on the flip side, with the man, if he is like, hey, watch now, this woman, she real disrespectful, you know, I'm not gonna do anything this week that, you know, gonna show her any kind of love or anything like that, then we go run into problems. So I think on the flip side, even when he is bad, and it goes with the same applies to the man as well, even when your partner, your marital partner, is bad or not performing as they should, I'm not talking about it better. Yeah, when they're not performing as they should, you still render unto them. Oh gosh, I still talking about the bed. You still render unto them something that's in line with the contract that you sign. It's not about the person, it's about the contract with God, between you and God. So we have to remember that.
And that's the thing. Submission and leadership isn't that on and off switch. You understand? And I think a lot of people, you know, see it as that I'm not gonna submit to him unless I get XYZ. If I don't get XYZ, I go and switch off. You understand? And that, I think that's one of the major factors that cause the conflict, but and the friction. But I want to just remind you guys that you can give us a call, 469-9112. Weigh in on the conversation. We want to hear from you, or you can send us a WhatsApp voice note to that same number. Let me just touch base real quick with the comment section. Good evening to Simone John. She's saying this discernment is necessary to identify the cat and bag personality types. Good evening to Nico Squires Modest. She's saying submission is coming under the mission, which means the man has the vision, and in order to fulfill the vision, he has a mission, and his helpmate, all right, sub under the leader, his helpmate under the leadership of her, all right, husband is to get the work done. All right, cool. Good evening to Clarissa CD. Men sure leading. As a
I saw that comment.
Yeah.
I saw that comment. Darling, change your perspective, because if you don't change your perspective, all men gonna be under that same view that you're seeing.
Actually, you would.
I saw that comment.
We would have that conversation some other time. I want to make note of that, and I wanna welcome Clarissa to follow us. All right, keep connected with us because we want to have that conversation. Shout out to Brandon Best. On the inside, he's saying, my wife loves me being the leader of my home. I believe she is a lot more happier with this than if the responsibility fell on her to lead our family. And I totally agree with that, boy. I think women, a lot of them say that life is much, much easier under the submission of a good leader, of a man who is able to spearhead, take care of the home and this type of thing, and she plays her role. I've heard a lot of wives say that life is a lot easier and happier.
But I'm a husband and life is a lot easier with a wife. It's like saying life is a lot easier with a husband. Of course, that's how God made the system to be. He made the system so that it is not good that man be by himself, so that when we there as a unit, life easier. If you're running marriage as it should be, it does make life easier. You look, I like my statistics. You look at nearly every statistical realm, married people perform better. So it will make life easier. Each person.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, although these statistics do show that men who are married tend to live longer, while women who are married tend to live shorter lives.
Because I worry too much.
Because some of you just don't do what all you have to do.
The man.
Wait.
Okay, so let me get back at that, right? So some of you don't do what they're supposed to do, right? So a lot of times, what gets in the way of a woman submitted to a man's will is it not being within what she thinks is right, and he could be wrong, or in her timing. Don't get me started on the timing thing. You understand? So what happens is that your assumption, or not necessarily assumption, your assessment of the situation,
Anthony.
is a yeah.
Sorry, just got to bring down your volume on your end a little bit. Coming in a little too
Okay,
loud.
I bring it down now. I turn it up. Yeah. Okay, I shout in.
Yeah,
I feel that
you're coming in real hot.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Is this better?
You're too low now. Go up a little bit. Go up a little bit. Go up the ladder a little bit. Go ahead. Go through.
Are we singing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So what happens? I'm trying to pick back up my train to jump back on the choo-choo train. So what happens is that you assume you already made up in your mind. Watch now. Here a slack, he done so. He ain't doing so and so. But your judgment may not be based on what he is seeing. He may be saying, okay, I'll tackle this today. I'll tackle that tomorrow. I have some other things I need to handle. There's a particular operation that he's going under. So if you're not necessarily totally in sync with his operation, there may be room for being disgruntled because it's not going according to how you want it. And that's something to look out for. I don't know if anybody wants to.
No, well, I understand that, but there are instances where it's not necessarily how you want it. It's just that, as you say, I'll tackle this thing this afternoon, I'll deal with this thing tomorrow, I'll deal with this next thing next week. All right, have a plan. Great, just get it done, right? But then 2 months later, the first thing that you say you're tackling this afternoon ain't even looked at. Of course, we'll be like,
He have a plan for it.
and
You know what?
The man have a plan for it.
Before we go on, I just wanted to make sure, because as I said, I like my statistics. I wanted to pull it up, and the proof has it that married men and women both live longer than single people. A study done by the National Institute of Health, that is basically the American Ministry of Health, as it were. Between 65 and 85 years, married men and women had a longer total life expectancy and average life expectancy than unmarried men and women. For example, at 65 years, total life expectancy for married men was 18.6 years. They're talking about at old, who lives, once they reach old, who lives longer. And married men, once they reach 65, it's 18.6 years. 2.2 years longer than unmarried men. And when you're talking average, 2.2 is a lot. So unmarried men, once they reach 65, your prospects of living longer than the married men is slim. And that's kind of obvious if we're being honest there. If we're being honest, that's very believable and obvious. And on the women's side, similarly at 65 years for married women was 21.1 years. So married women live longer than their married husbands, of course. 1.5 years longer than unmarried women. So married people live longer because God made us to function with each other. And if you look at it, look at old married couples. How many old married couples you know? One dies and the other dies within quick time. Real often I find that something that I recognize in that. So that was just on the note of
I stand corrected because that was the last bit of statistics I saw was what I quoted.
I want to take
Can I jump in and respond to something?
Yeah.
So one thing was mentioned about men doing the work late, and it is true. It is true that a lot of times we procrastinate to get things done, right? And I'll ask you the same question with a little bit of variation that I asked my wife probably yesterday or the day before. What was the ratio? Well, I know into the statistics. I don't know statistics. What is the ratio of how much a man or how much favors a man asked of a woman versus how much a woman asks of a man? During the day.
Sure.
Yeah, because during the day, I probably asked my wife to do one thing for me. And it's like, hey, babe, when are you going downstairs? Babe, so of course I might fall short. But we ain't going through these statistics today. Let the statistics be fair.
It's because, I will tell you why. It's because all they don't see the things. All they don't
I
see.
know that.
All they
I knew
blind.
that was coming. That's why I didn't
Blind to a
jump
lot of
in.
things, right?
That's why I didn't jump in.
So
I knew that one was coming.
We eyes open for everything. And we will wake up in the morning, you see the 15 bajillion things list. As you walk, you're seeing everything, all the things, and you're just adding the list. And all you would wonderfully, obliviously, just like
But
walk down to breakfast.
here's the thing.
do it for
That's
free,
that's
like,
both of our
anything,
special
nothing.
powers. We have superpowers. You all have superpowers to be able to notice some of the things we don't notice. And women speak more words than men on average, but they are a lot more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you all have
Yeah.
you all have the willingness and
definitely.
ability to keep talking about it. And that's what you do. We both have our strong points. And the man's ability to walk, to see something untidy and step over it is also his
Yeah.
ability to keep a level head during confusing times in life. And that is why you want that man as your leader. In fact, wait, I'm preaching here. In fact, the man that is able to ignore the mess might be the ideal man to lead you through this kind of trying time we are facing right now in life.
Wow.
So
But it might become a trying time if the mess just keeps piling up, you know.
No, well, after a while,
eventually, you
yeah,
have to
after
clean
a
it.
while, it go start bothering us. Like
Yeah.
it come like
I mean,
curtains. A
can't
man could
control
hang up a
eventually.
curtain for an entire year, wash it, put it back up, same thing. But you know when Christmas comes,
something that I always like to remember. I remember my dad always said this, that you don't want your wife to be just like you. Otherwise, you have a man.
yeah,
You have a husband. Some men complain about when their wife does something different than they do it. Of course she does. She wants to change the curtain twice per year because she's a woman. You're expected to do certain things. But on the other hand,
yeah. You
the
can't-
man is
yeah.
different from the woman too. So the woman has to expect that all the things that you see should be a certain way just literally doesn't bother the man. I know my wife asks me sometimes, so like, that mess doesn't bother you. You don't see that. And I'm like, yeah, I see it, but the way it bothers you, it just does
Yeah.
not bother me. I could get up off the bed and the sheets look a bit rumpled. And honestly, I look back at that and nothing triggers in my mind. Nothing. I could walk out and my day goes on as normal. But for some
And I think
other
that,
people,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, it bothers you. I think is might be partially a superpower, but a lot of it is training.
yes,
Because
true.
I think it's a lot of training in us as well. You know, you growing up as a female, you could get up in the bed and leave it rumple.
True.
No, you could not see the dirt and not sweep and not, you'll get buff from whole day, you know. But if you have brothers in the house, they're not getting that level of correction to see
actually,
the things that are bad.
I could see.
I think what I would say is that the boys would get correction for not seeing other things like the yard needs sweeping or the grass need to clip or cut. You understand?
Right.
Because just as Nathan was saying, what would bother men is when we jump in the car and we start it and the gas almost on E and you was the last person drive the car or the tail light break. You understand? Or something damage on the car, it have a scratch. You understand? That would bother us. So it's a kind of...
But you see the level of botheration is how often these little things that we are trained to see versus the things
True.
that y'all are trained to see, or what things are so much and so often.
I could understand.
Yeah, so it's like death by 1,000 cuts kind
I
of
could
thing.
understand that.
While
I could understand
how
that.
often does the yard need to cut? How often does the garbage need to be, things like that? How often does a broken tail light happen? But the wares piling up every day, the dirt piling up every day, the bed rumple every day,
A point
the children.
that
you know?
I willingly give to the Caribbean feminist, as it were, is, oh gosh, I ain't going down a bad road, oh gosh.
Alright, go ahead,
a point
go ahead.
I willingly give to them is that difference in parenting that many of those Caribbean parents have with the boys and girls. And to be very honest, I find it's the Caribbean mothers that have some of the worst of it. Some of those Caribbean mothers, their parenting style is the daughter is the servant, the slave, and the son is the king. I will not deny that because I have seen it in some households.
Yeah.
There are some households like that. And that kind of training ends up in the long run hurting both sides because that boy is an immature boy, even in marriage. And the woman woman believes that her duty is to do every single thing, which is eventually going to frustrate her. It mightn't frustrate her in the first 2 years, but it eventually is going to frustrate her. Someday she's going to come home from work, go to wash the wares, watch you sit and watching TV, and she going to trip.
She gonna get the flashbacks from her childhood.
Yes,
but
so I agree with that. There's that element.
So balance in the culture needs to happen. I love where the conversation is going. It's just about almost 10 minutes after the hour of 8. We gotta take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Talk Heavy podcast.
Greetings in the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and soon and coming King. I want to invite you to the Nautical Hour, a time of prayer, a time of seeking the face of God so that we can be able to know what God is doing in this season. This dispensation is a time where we need to know what God is doing, and therefore prayer is the way we communicate with Him and He communicates with us. I want to invite you Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. Let us get an opportunity to seek the face of God together. He has something in store for you. He has something in store for me. And when we get together, the power of God, the presence of God changes things. I am Pastor Randall Rodney saying, when life gets too hard to stand, kneel.
Welcome to Keen's Heart for Excellence Learning Center, where we provide a quality holistic learning environment with qualified skilled teachers. Ages range from 2.5 right up to 6 years old. Also available are our daycare services for children 3 months and older from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Right, Alpha and Omega, beginning and the end. Well, I'm here to tell you about the end of your search, right? If you're looking for a professional writer, copywriter, and blogger, then look no further, because Omega Francis is here with a BA in Communication Studies and a Master in Fine Arts Creative Writing. Omega has done work for the University of West Indies, all right? Kali Communications, Underpinnings, Monster Media Limited, and much more, right? You can get in touch with her via 794-0600 or email her at omegadenise@gmail.com or visit her website www.omegafrancis.com. All right? So I love where the conversation is going, right? I want to ask a important question one time, because later on in the video there was a 14-minute clip aside from this one that went viral, right? Because it was a whole interview, a YouTube video, and the interviewer asked, would you do all of this for a broke man? And she was like, no. One time, no. So my question is, right, and I just threw it out there for everybody, is submission only for a man of a particular status or wealth, social class, or whatever the case is?
Yes.
Why?
Because submission is for your husband, and your husband isn't everybody. Your husband is one man. And I would suppose your husband would be selected based on all of those factors too. I wouldn't be angry with a woman selecting her husband based on the value he brings to her. She would be foolish to not select him based on that.
But you put in his value based on a monetary on a number, on how much money he could bring to.
I didn't say a number. You said a couple different things. So should a man submitting to a man be based on a couple factors? Primarily, the primary factor is husband. But I also believe that in wisdom, your husband should be based on a couple factors too. You don't choose any riffraff from off the streets for that.
But you're saying what she's saying is he has to be wealthy, you know. He has to be rich in order for her to submit.
I would disagree with that. I wouldn't say he has to be rich, but I would say that he has to be a man that the woman wants to be a husband. And a woman wouldn't want any and every man to be a husband.
Well, being rich shouldn't be a prerequisite. Well, the most important prerequisite in the first place for marrying a man.
True.
You understand?
I agree. I disagree. If you're saying that the only reason you're marrying a man is wealth, then you're not a wise person. But if his ability to gain wealth is part of the reason you're looking at him, I would say that's a good
still
enough
kind of the
reason.
same thing, bro. His ability
Part
to
of the reason?
you're using his ability to gain wealth in the future. How is that different from submitting to him because he has wealth?
Well, as a woman, women have at least 9 months, if they're planning to have children, at least one child, 9 months and a couple years of taking care of that child when you wouldn't be able to work as good as you would be able to work without the child. You need some help. If I am a woman and I know for a considerable period of time while I'm married, I wouldn't be able to work. And I'm looking for a man to supply resources for me during that time and during my time with this child and for the future of my child. Would I look for a man that can provide more resources or less resources?
But if he, it shouldn't be that you're using the resources.
Why not? Because I need resources to live. I can't look
yes,
at you and
I think
look at you and
still-
you are unable to provide resources. And
At that
I
point
want
in
you-
time. At that point in time.
But that's why I added his ability to gain resources, not just
right,
his,
but
his
you
resources.
being with him isn't based only on his ability.
Only.
But that's what
is a
she's
factor.
saying. Because I'm not submitting to a man
I
who has no
disagree.
money
I
at any
disagree
point
with
in
the
time.
only. I disagree with the only. But I understand if it's part of the factor. It makes sense. Gold digging makes sense.
But the thing is with that whole gold digging thing, right? If a man sells himself, he puts himself out there.
Lead with
and
his wallet.
selling point is,
Right.
I am rich, I can buy you the world, and he gets 100,000 women running behind him. He cannot therefore call them gold diggers, because that's what he put out for sale.
Wait, let's flip
That's
that
what he
script.
said.
Wait, let's flip that script. If a woman leads with her body, if a woman leads with her body, and that's what she's displaying, knowing that the sexualized female body is attractive to men, and a set of men come seeking her for that body, can she call them thirsty men or perverts in that way?
It really depends
On
what?
on the approach.
Well, I will say the same
Because
thing about the gold diggers
because
too.
they can come to buy what she's selling, quote unquote, buy what she's selling. But there's a nuance to at least the sexual part of it. Because remember, there's the idea of assault and all these
No. I'm not talking about
nuances,
assault. I'm talking about
Right.
like
But
how we would consider
if you're-
gold diggers' side too. They're looking for. They're not assaulting. That's what they're seeking.
Let me use an example of the Instagram girl model, right? Instagram model. You know what they look, they put out there, etc., etc. And then a guy slides into her DMs expecting an exchange, a physical exchange. I don't think she should be surprised.
All right. Well, you're fair on both sides. If that's the case,
She could. I'm not saying that she has to accept it because,
true,
at
true.
the end of the day, it's her condition. It's conditional. It's consent. It has to be consensual.
But if a set of men in her inbox proposing that she send them this and send them that, she look for it. In other words,
not look for it, but it's a little bit. It blurs the lines a little bit because I don't want to victim blame it or any kind of thing. Don't put that. It
right.
blurs the lines. A little bit.
So the wealthy man who flexing his cash, he not looking for it either. But if women come to him expecting cash for their attention, he shouldn't be surprised. Same way. It's the same
shouldn't
thing.
be surprised.
Right.
No, because it's
Right,
an
I agree.
is what he's putting out there that this is who he is, or that is who she is. One-dimensional people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
I totally agree. I totally
Yeah,
agree.
I agree
Yeah.
with that as well because
it's different from saying the average woman who puts up a bikini pic on her Instagram every so often. A guy likes the bikini pic and he slides in and he asks for more pics. No, you're wrong. That's not what she's really selling. You
I
understand?
agree in a sense
that's
with you.
that's
but
not what
then,
she's selling.
But then,
So
here's something.
if her normal page is, you know, basically a normal day-to-day work, casual family,
And that's just
once or twice she will put up a bikini pic. She on the beach, she at the pool, and he see the bikini pic that one time and he say,
he out of
he's
place.
a tasty man.
Right.
He out of place.
I understand. I
Because
understand.
that's not what she's.
I understand what you're saying because that's not her trend. That's not who she is generally. However,
So if that's
I-
not who you are, then how you end up there?
well, because you that was the setting you were in. Here's the part that I don't like in this. Here's the part that what's your name? Sorry, Omega.
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 The end. The part I don't like in this in modern times is the dishonesty. Like a lady, a girl, a young lady will go to the beach, take out a bikini picture, and we know that you took out 30 because we saw you on the beach posing, and then let your friend come to check it back, and then pose again and let your friend come to. We know you took out many. The angles that you are showing are all showing because you want them to show. And I don't like the dishonesty in modern times where we pretend like the intention of that wasn't to get sexualized attention. If you place a sexually evocative picture on the internet, you are very aware the kind of attention you're going to get. Very aware. Let's not. I really don't like the pretense of it.
You're aware that you may get that, but that may not be your intention.
We can't determine a person's intention. But do you think that there's a possibility that it can be her intention?
There is a possibility, of course.
Right. So,
The same way there are actual men who want women who want them for their money. There are men who are like that. So they
True.
will front the money. And they are perfectly okay with the woman wanting all that.
I know this is of the submission topic, but a question I have: do you think, as you're a woman, a professional woman for your whole life, do you think as a woman you could put a revealing, sexually evocative? That's the term I like to use now because it evokes a sexual thought in the average man. And let's not pretend like we don't understand that. You think as a woman you could put a sexually evocative image online and not be aware, even if it's just in the back of your mind or in the middle or sometimes at the front, very much aware that this is going to gather more male intention? Is there ever a time that is done without that awareness in your mind?
No, because you're a woman and we exist in a space where we're always going to be sexualized no matter what we do. So in the same example of a bikini pic, a bikini pic isn't necessarily or inherently sexual.
True.
It's I am wearing the outfit that is appropriate for the beach or the pool, and I find this bikini look real nice, and I want to take a nice picture of myself. I'm not saying I putting it out there, but you could wear a suit to the beach, take a picture of it, and some man will sexualize it. Let's be very real about that one.
I have
You
no
understand?
doubt about it.
yeah.
Zero doubt.
You understand? So it's always something that we have playing in the back of our minds, no matter what we do. But I don't think that should particularly stop us from existing and enjoying things.
Of course.
Because I think part of the point is that I think any person, once you're an adult with full autonomy over yourself and your decisions, we should be able to do whatever we want. We should be able to jump off the Caroni Bridge and swim straight up, right? But just as Nathan was saying, what we understand that certain decisions as adults they bring certain consequences and certain responses, right, and certain reactions from the outside people, and we can't determine how people respond to our actions.
True.
You understand? So, and as you were saying before, why people just complain? You understand? If it is I lead with my wallet right through, I just always flaunting. I taking picture here so on Instagram with blue polymers right through. I go and get girl in my DMs because I know that's what's gonna happen.
One of my peeves online is the profiles that be doing what they're doing, and then they take a snap of some youth man in the inbox. And look how these men testy in my inbox.
That's what I'm saying.
Actually in my inbox. And
That's
every week is a new man you're shining up.
No, we're not.
That's a kind of peeve of mine.
We're not condoning them fellas and their actions.
Wait, I'm not talking about the men who going out of the way. I'm not talking about those men who saying rubbish in the inbox. I'm not even talking about that. But you know, the men who desperate now. They're not saying something criminal. They're saying something embarrassing. And you never see that? Somebody shining. Like, oh gosh, girl. Hey, hi.
Oh,
hi.
right.
Yo,
Yeah.
what's your number?
Yeah.
Give me your WhatsApp now.
They're not necessarily being disrespectful, but
Exactly.
they're still being a kind of nuisance. And I personally hate that.
A nuisance.
I think,
Yes.
well, it might vex with me,
And
but come at my faith. I think men should not slide in woman DMs. Don't slide in no girl DMs.
that's
Don't
what
slide
I was
in
gonna
no
say,
woman
because
DMs.
it's like,
Leave the women
it's
to
a
slide in
different-
with DMs. All the women need to take
Yeah,
initiative
it's a-
now. Because if remember now, even if you respectfully tell a woman, this is a nice outfit on you. This looks good. Good. Congratulations. Look, they in the DMs thing. You understand?
So
Just don't do
Yeah,
anything.
but it's-
Just don't do it.
It's Jesse, like I say. First of all, there is a difference between you post the bikini pic and you get 100, oh good, lovely, or bright star, what is called it, the little heart size on your thing, and likes and plenty likes and thing, compared to sliding and hi, oh good girl, looking real sweet, and they running it down, and there's a difference,
But all they
There's a
don't like,
difference.
but women don't like none. Let me tell you why. A
But-
woman
No,
will never like.
You on that one.
A
I will
woman,
correct
don't get
you on
tired,
that
Pen Nathan.
one.
Let me tell you something. A woman will never appreciate your comment or your compliment unless she attracted to you.
Well, that is the point I was waiting
If
to
she
make.
not attracted to you, you ain't getting no current.
That is the point
You have
I was
no
waiting
current
to
to get.
make. Listen, that door slide in your DMs. I wouldn't say it's a law. Fellas, it's not you could slide in DMs, but you had to know where you stand. You had to know if
had to
you
be
had to know where your
respectful,
profile
man. Come on.
picture is standing. No, I'm not even talking about respect.
right,
Omega,
right.
I'm not
Yeah.
talking about you. It's not about respect.
Yeah,
You have to know the kind of clout that your profile picture
Men
is
have
saying.
a code. Men have a different code.
You know if your profile picture is saying that I could slide in the DMs here. You have to know that as a big man.
Yeah,
And
makes sense.
if you know that your profile picture, and I'm not saying anything is wrong with this, fellas, but if you know your profile picture is just outside Sunday church clothes in the shirt and pants, and you have 4 pictures in a row like that, and that's it. Homeboy, I have no problem with that. You do your thing. But know that certain inboxes, the sliding in will not be your approach. Your approach will be carrying chairs at the end of church. You understand? That's your approach. Help them carry the chair to pack up and all that. That's your approach. But sliding in DMs is
Yeah,
for
look
a
like
certain
choke, man.
profile. A certain profile. You have your top flyer pics, your pics in New York, Madison Square. You slide in DMs.
I had a response to Jezreel there where he said, it's like, you can't really compliment somebody because they'll react with, he pervy and he slide in my DMs and have no time, right? But there really is a context, there really is a time, because
There's a face, there's an attractiveness. There isn't a time. There's a level of attractiveness.
Right. Daddy currency, you know.
No, what I say is, because we're constantly, as a woman, we're constantly being bombarded with people. Oh, you're good, nice, you're sweet, you're all these comments consistently. You're just another one of that, eh? And we're just kind of like trying to defend against that throughout our life, throughout the day. So until you enter into that realm in a different way, you will just be on the pile of the fella by the side of the road who suiting you and saying you're sweet and empress and all this kind of thing.
I fully agree.
And
That's true,
no? Hear all that.
What Omega's saying is right.
Yeah, that's true.
But
that's true.
And you can be my manager and my best friend, brother, and thing, but you're still relegated to the pile because of how
she's
you
right.
come and how you approach.
And that actually proves that the attractiveness is the key. Because when you're being bombarded with 1,000 men, well, I just draw an example, 1,000 men per year requesting.
Yeah.
The only one that will stand out is the one that stands out.
You know, I would never.
And it's not always physical attractiveness, eh? Well, you have to understand that it's not always
But when you're
physical
online, when you're online, that's the difficulty with online. Now, the thing is, I believe you. Back in school days, some of them funny fellas, them didn't need to be all that attractive. They're funny. But I could bring my funniness in real.
Yeah.
I could walk up to you and crack a joke in real. But if I run in your DMs with a joke, you click my profile picture and see my profile picture and you click block because it doesn't matter. Over the internet, bro. Make your jokes in person.
Nah, but I would never forget that time I roast a girl about she picture already and she ended up liking me. I say, girl, something like that. But she foot look big like a penguin, like a duck or something. So your foot look big so, and she's like, who's you to tell me my foot look big?
There's some pickup artist techniques. No, that's serious. If you go up on YouTube, some pickup artists.
I was just being wild. I was just being just real.
Oh, that was not pickup technique.
No. I was I was just being me. You understand? But we had a slight familiarity in person and things. So
right.
But that's the next thing, eh? As you're saying, on a real though, fellas, all kicks and fun. Stop sliding into strange women DMs. Think about that. Think about it as the social media throws off the reality of it. Like, think about that. A strange woman walking the road, and you walk up next to her to talk to Chloe. Hi.
Yes. Oh my God.
Like that's really weird.
DMs is like personal space.
It is.
The virtual personal space.
Think about it like that. Think about it like that.
And if also there's a next thing that men need to understand. If you're sliding, and she say, "Hey, not today, Satan. Move on."
Yeah.
Move on.
Not even that,
right? Don't keep coming back.
Yeah, not even.
Just now, Omega, let me give you some advice from the male perspective. If you don't want him to continue, don't reply.
Yeah, that's the next thing too.
Hey,
Positive
listen,
or negative reply for men is positive reply.
Yeah.
Listen,
not all men.
Not all. I'm talking about those kinds of men.
Yeah.
Some of those, you never notice those men who suit in women in Shogunas or something. They suit. If she don't turn around, they try and insult because their whole aim is just to get you to react to her.
Yeah.
Their aim is just to get you to react. So if you want to get rid of him, best you ignore him and don't snap it and post it.
I don't have those problems in that because I kind of swift. It's like as soon as I see you and you know how a lot of those DMs they don't see that you see the message and they can cancel you one time. You know who's you? You ain't even getting a reply.
Now, but I would advise men, if you initiate a conversation with a female and you realize you're getting one word answer, you ain't getting replies, she replying 2 days, 3 days after, abort.
Well,
immediately. Yeah, that's some self-respect.
I find too many youth men they losing this self-respect, man. How I could be saying hi, hello 10 times without a response in an inbox. How?
That's wild, bro.
How?
Listen, I've seen women put up videos of their DMs and the man saying hi for 3 years.
Bro.
And he ain't get a response.
Okay.
You understand? That not right, man.
But as a man, as if some advice to any man looking on the online dating market, not set up to benefit men. The truth and the fact it's not set up to benefit women either. But women would GT more. They may not get the relationships they want, but they would GT more because you throw everyone into an open marketplace. And as you were talking about Omega, the average woman is always getting fellas.
Yeah.
The average, listen, you have to be the top fella to have women regularly in your DMs.
Yeah.
That does not happen like that. And for that to happen, you don't just have to look good, you have to be rich.
Yeah. Oh, not. You don't have to be rich, but at least saying something was.
Saying something.
You had to be saying something.
You had to be saying something.
You understand?
Right.
So,
Because let me say, it's all set up be seen so far, you know.
Nah.
the social media did that.
No, it's all set up be seen for you because all you say that the man's purpose is to provide and his purpose is to have this job and to
We
provide
didn't
and
say
take care
that.
of the woman.
We
So
didn't
the
say
woman
that.
looking for a man
Nietzsche and God
to
said
do
that.
exactly that. She looking for a man who have a certain amount of mileage,
Yeah.
money wise and status wise.
But-
So you can't afford to.
But you see,
I
all
think
that
that's
you
different.
saying there, I kind of agree with what you're saying then, Omega. But I wouldn't say that we set it up that way. That's the argument that some people talk about the patriarchy, etc. I don't believe that. I believe nature and God set it up that way. Men are naturally stronger than women, especially when all labor was physical and manual. Of course, the man is the provider. That wasn't some deep, dark, underhanded men rubbing their hands.
We say is that a biological explanation for that?
Biological reason for that, of course. So I wouldn't
So
put
is the
it.
financial reason?
The
So
fi-
then break it down, dismantle it.
Okay, let me break it down because I like doing
We
this.
have 5 minutes, right?
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Let me break it down. There's a financial reason for this. I like to the example I like to draw back to is let's bring it back to simpler times when humans were in their hunter-gatherer stage, basically. Think of a hunter-gatherer society. You're at the age of 19. You're able, and men and women have different strength abilities. In the hunter-gatherer days, the women were more the gatherers, the men were more the hunters, because a hunt could take several weeks, and as a woman, you have certain biological realities that would make it difficult for you to spend weeks in the forest and the wilderness, etc., etc. The men go out to hunt, the women gather. If you're at 19 years old and you're looking for a man in the future, obviously you want a man who would be able to provide the most for you, because you know as a woman, at some point in time, you might not be able to go gather berries. Even if you are really good at gathering berries, even if you are a partial female hunter, at some point in time, when I have to do my duty to reproduce for my tribe and make a family, I need someone to provide for me. So obviously the men who provided more were the more desirable men. That is obvious. That's not some underhanded thing. That is obvious. Women are in a biological situation where they would need provision at some point in time. So obviously they look for a better provider. Men are in a biological position where they would need a mate. So they look for the best mating apparatus, by and large. And that's just the biological realities that we face. And the social realities could try and change some of that, but it doesn't even work. And when we throw all of that online, now we have all billion of the women online look for the best men.
Yeah.
The best men would result in
20%. 10%.
Less than 10%. Very, very few men there at the top. So what that does for women, although they have all the choices in the world screaming in their DMs, they're looking at the top 10%. And that top 10% have all the choices of women on their side. So women now, who they want is out of their reach and unattainable. But you have an excess of choice in who you don't want. And for men, the average man out there, who he wants is looking at the top 10%, and she has no interest in him. And if this woman gets to the top 10% because he is spoiled for choice so much, there's a high likelihood that he will act as if he's spoiled for choice. And the internet, social media created that dilemma because these top 10% men now are able to speak to all the women in the world that would have wanted them before. Did that make sense, Omega?
So they're able to build that illusion. The average man
have it hard if you're looking for social media style.
Right, but social media is the platform to cause the illusion, to build that and that's why we have people catfishing now too.
Well, yes, of course. And I think so social media made it difficult for the average man. That's why some of those average men bitter online and hate women so bad.
The incels.
Listen, some of them men, they need help. They really need help. And on the other hand, that's why some women think every man is dog, because you go for all the dog men at the top. You've been all 600 women in this group have been with the 5 dog men at the top. So you feel that's representative of all men.
If we pull it back, are the ones who are barking, they need a submissive wife.
The thing is, in the social media context, they will get whatever wife they want. That's the nature of it. Because they are, I'm talking about the men in that as Kevin Samuels and rest in peace. And those guys
don't like that name. They don't like that name.
As guys like him used to talk about them. I don't like the term, but it paints a picture. The high value men. As guys like him would talk about. It is a reality. It's a reality that we have to face. And I think that is hurting the dating scene for some of the young people.
Well, on that note, this conversation could go on and on, but I feel we might have a part 2 of this, because we cannot transition into something else. But I like that because when you know a conversation is fruitful, it builds into other things. You understand? So this is where we close the curtains this Wednesday on another edition of the Talk Heavy podcast. It was nice. I want to say thanks to each and every one of you who would have joined us on Facebook, who would have shared and commented, contributed as well. I find people a little shy. We have a number there. Give you a call. Come and talk heavy. Jump in. I don't know if it is that it's that people out there want to come in the studio and chop it up with us, right? So here what's going on. Send us a DM. Send us a WhatsApp 4699112. If you want to come in here and weigh in on the topics that we talk about, hit me up. Let me know. Right? Remember to don't miss the Nautical Hour Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 3 to 5 a.m. in the morning. Start your day the right way with prayer. All right? And we'll be back here, of course, next Wednesday from 7 p.m. with more Talk Heavy. We always talking heavy on this side, right? So, of course, we close things off with some local music. We love to support local, right? This is Jara Nurse with Love Technician. Have a great week.
Expression House Media.
The Bible says, he that findeth a wife, findeth a good thing. And it's so nice, we're making love, and there's no sin. Hello? I'll be there shortly. I'm a qualified and certified technician. Hey, hey. A wifey call me on work and me office phone. Says she's needing me urgently at home. Is everything okay?
I just needed to get here.
Clearly to me she's feeling miserable, and I'm the only man on earth that can ease her trouble. So when this girl just start to malfunction, pick up the phone and call the technician. Love technician. Baby, tell me why you want me fix. Love technician. Good lush. Your first deposit is a kiss. Love technician. And you not bound for screwdriver, no pliers, no vice grip. Technician. Baby. Tell me when she get that kind of wifey knowledge. She wake me up in the morning with a hot cup of porridge. Another love session she encourage. Make me start children in my back like me got cold storage. reach ya. Love like this, it got no restrictions. Or when we go to church on Sunday, no convictions. Me loving just like her medication. So the doctor put my name on a prescription. Love technician. Baby, tell me why you want me fix. Love technician. Good Lord, your first deposit is a kiss. A love technician. You no bank for screwdriver, no pliers, no bike script. Technician, baby. Tell me why you want me to fix. Why? Tell me what you want me to fix. Baby, tell me what you want me to fix. Yeah. I'm your love technician. Baby, tell me why you want me fix. Tell me what you want me to fix. Baby, tell me what you want me to fix. I'm your love technician. Baby, tell me why you want me fix. In the morning, after devotion, so you can call your love technician. In the night time, or some commotion, why? In the daytime, when you start malfunction, why? I'm the doctor's recommendation, and I'm so glad, baby, to be your husband. Love technician, baby. Say love technician, baby.
I just need you